wouldn't we? Let's talk to Maria Caulfield, NHS nurse and former Conservative MP, who's now defected to Reform. Maria, very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I was quite surprised, actually, because that happened right after we spoke the last time, and suddenly we went, oh, Maria Caulfield's suddenly gone to Reform. Like, she didn't tell me.
I know, I felt a bit bad about that, Mike. I wasn't expecting it to come out, to be honest.
Yeah, not to worry. So tell us why, first of all.
Well, just because, even before the general election, I was getting frustrated with the government. My principles haven't changed. I believe in a small state and low taxation and control of our borders, money and our laws. And we clearly weren't delivering that. And I was quite frustrated. And I didn't feel the Conservative Party learnt from their defeat at the last general election. And if they were in government tomorrow, I think they make exactly the same mistakes again. It's too broad a church in the Conservative Party.
Right.
And Reform is kind of more based on the principles that I believe in.
And what's interesting about the Conservative Party, particularly in the last couple of weeks, even at conference, people, they were getting all excited about, Kemi Badenoch's made a great speech. And, I think it was Kevin Hollinroke, the party chairman, he actually put out a tweet saying, isn't it great, 33% of people thought that Kemi Badenoch's speech was good. And I'm kind of going, it's not really something to shout about. 33% of the public is not a very good number. Maybe if it was 83%, you would put it out. But he was kind of basing it on the fact that only 23% of people thought Keir Starmer's speech was any good. But they seem to have a very low bar when it comes to kind of ambition nowadays.
Absolutely. And I just think the general public have turned off of both parties. And I think it doesn't matter what either of them say now. People want delivery. Great speeches are fine. I don't have a problem with abolishing stamp duty, but no one believes it will ever happen.
Right.
I used to beg for us, when I was a Conservative, to lift the income tax threshold, which would have been a boost for everyone, and they just would not do it. No one believes whatever they say at conferences that will ever happen.
No, exactly right. And that's part of, as you say, the paucity of the two main parties now, or the two formerly main parties, because people just don't believe a word they say. This is a long conversation with John Rentoul there about how he doesn't like to hear the word liar used. He doesn't like to use the word because he thinks it demeans people in politics. But, we wouldn't call people liars in politics if they didn't keep lying.
Well, just look at Nigel Farage in the last week. He's been very honest that if Reform formed a government tomorrow, income, tax reductions are not going to be the first thing. They've got to reduce public spending. Yeah. And that's being honest about the situation we're in. And yet you see Rachel Reeves on the TV every day saying the country's growing, things are improving. Yeah. Well, people absolutely know it's not. They know at the end of every month what a struggle it is to pay the bills and put food on the table. Yeah, absolutely right.
I'll tell you, there's something that's troubled me this morning. There's a piece in the Times, I don't know if you've seen the Times this morning, but they've done a survey of public sector workers. The public sector workers in Britain, the research included a survey of around about 8,000 people. Public sector workers view Britain less favourably than the public and are more sympathetic to adversaries such as Russia and China and terror groups such as Hamas. And it says that in the NHS alone, 30% of people who work in the NHS expressed the highest degree of sympathy for Hamas. That's extraordinary, isn't it?
It is, and I think there is a bit of a difference between public sector workers and the private sector. I work in the public sector, and we're shielded a lot from some of the kind of economic impacts of the economy, for example, and political decisions. Because you're in, as a nurse, it's a tough old job. But I've got, I've virtually got a job for life. We're always going to need nurses. You've got sick pay, a pension, annual leave. If you're a plumber or a builder, you do not have those perks of the job. And when other households, our income is drying up, you're the first person that they're not going to employ. They're not going to have that roof extension or the house rewired or whatever. So I think the public sector is very shielded. And so it can have the luxury of having more left-wing views than people have to go out and earn a living for themselves.
Yeah, exactly right. Do you come across it much? There's a story today in the Telegraph saying that basically there's new guidance coming out on NHS uniforms. New guidance will suggest that staff will be prevented from wearing any items with a political connotation, such as pro-Palestine badges, scarves, shirts, keffiyehs, presumably as well. Is there a lot of that going on?
There's not a huge amount, and actually, a bit like public, the silent majority who work in the NHS or in schools or in other public sector spaces often are not vocal about their beliefs and are not as left-wing as people think. But they're too afraid to speak out and too afraid to maybe discuss issues that are quite controversial and just want to get on with their job, to be honest. And the people you hear from are kind of the often kind of left-leaning, unionised people who are feel very confident about speaking out.
Yeah, exactly right. And as far as the latest kind of scenario with the BMA is concerned, I mean, there's talk of another strike coming from doctors. Is that something you're expecting, or are you hoping that's not going to happen?
Yeah, I think it may, and I don't think it's over pay this time. I think it's over an issue that I've flagged with you a couple of times before, Mike, around, we've got, the Conservatives, to be fair, we increased training spaces for doctors, nurses, midwives, dentists, and they're now finishing their training, qualified, and cannot get jobs. And so I think the BMA at the moment, and they do have to take some accountability for this, like £500 million was spent on that 22% pay rise, are really fighting now for qualified staff, and they represent doctors, being able to get jobs when they've finished their qualifications. I don't think striking is ever the answer, but that is a valid issue. And, when we see some of the problems in the NHS, it's quite shocking that we've spent taxpayers' money training people, we've got shortages of staff, and there's not enough money to pay them to do the job they're qualified for. Yeah,
exactly right. Maria, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Maria Caulfield, the NHS nurse, former Conservative MP, now defected to Reform, because she says it now represents what her beliefs are, much more so than the Conservative Party, which is too broad. I think a lot of people will say that the Conservative Party has kind of left them. They haven't left it, if you like.